Hey, everybody, welcome to our Spotlight series. I'm here with J.W. Robinson of Fay Ranches. J.W., how's it going?
Jonathan, it's all good today, man. Everything is fantastic.
All right, so let's get into Fay Ranches. What exactly do you guys do?
So at Fay Ranches, we're selling ranch real estate, a lot of people think of a ranch, they think of a cattle ranch, but more just large tracts of land, agricultural land that also double as recreational properties such as fishing, hunting. People are all into razor riding and four wheelers and all that kind of stuff nowadays. And the ranches really are dual purpose nowadays for recreation as well as an agricultural asset.
Got it. And to be I mean, your business must be booming because the trend is definitely going to more being able to source your own food, being able to be independent. And my question is, what constitutes a ranch? Like, how big does it have to be?
Yeah, that's a great question because people will buy a 20 to 60 acre tract of land and they'll hang up a ranch sign.
How,
You enter into the property, and another guy has a 2,000 acre tract of land or even 20,000 acre tract of land. So there's a large variable there, and I would say traditionally, a 500-600 acre piece all the way up as large as you could be is what we would call ranch properties in the United States. But nowadays the trend is exactly what you're saying, and we're really seeing people buying up small tracts of land where they can raise a little bit of their own beef, their own meat, have a little goat's milk, have a garden, have the chickens, the whole thing, and it's becoming very popular all over the United States.
yep. What do you think the smallest amount of land is that you can achieve those goals?
Yeah, that's really the answer. That's really based on location. So, like I'm out here in the state of Wyoming, where we have a drier, more arid climate, where we have to have water, like irrigated water, to make a fertile piece of property. But you could go to another spot, like we've moved into the southeast part of the United States, where there's a wetter climate and a lot of the more fertile ground, dark black soil. And so
Mhm.
what might take you 100 acres in Wyoming might be able to get done on 5 acres in another location, if that makes sense.
It does that you explained it that way. Thank you. I've never heard. This is all new to me, so this is great. I'm asking questions and learning, and selfishly, I'm answering some questions that I have.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Okay, awesome. So, what before we get into the business, what actually got you into that business? Because that's
Yeah,
definitely a specialty.
yeah. So we moved out to Wyoming. My family did when I was a senior in high school, and we had always been around land and agriculture and stuff. But my dad built a lot of subdivision homes, and we flipped them. Like we'd be living in one and building another, and Grandpa would be living in one, and they would all three be for sale. So being around real estate sales was not new to me. I had grown up in real estate sales, but when I moved to Wyoming as a senior in high school, I fell in love with the Western way of life and the ranching way of life. And I ended up working, on multiple big ranches for wealthy landowners who were large businessmen from New York or LA or, Houston, Texas. And I would work with these guys and just see how they had gone off and made money a different
Hmm.
way than I had, and I respected it. And so I started moving away from being like the hands-on labor
Yep.
in agriculture as much as I started trying to say, hey, how can I grow and build something that I can gain a little more value out of monetarily, but still be involved in what I love. And so I started helping people sell ranches as well as helping buyers buy ranches. And with my background, I came to the table with an extensive knowledge in both agriculture and real estate. So that's how I ended up there.
Nice. That actually makes a lot more sense than most people. That's awesome. What are some of the trends that you guys see now?
So, the current trend is we just came out of the highest real estate values in the most booming market maybe we've ever seen in the history of the United States real estate. So, um, sellers are wanting to continue getting those prices
Yep.
that they saw the last 3 years, and buyers are looking at national news and they're looking at current economic factors, and they're saying, no, these sellers got to drop prices at some point. So I feel like right now the current trend is there's a giant holding pattern, and sellers are waiting it out, seeing how they can hold in there to get the biggest value, and buyers are now going, no, I'm holding out to see where I can next get my best deal.
Yep.
That's kind of the most current trend I see in the market right now, and I think that's across the board to commercial and residential deals too.
I would agree with that. I would also agree it's not just real estate.
Yeah.
I think it's nationwide. I think it's industry. I think it's definitely across multiple industries based on what I'm seeing.
Yep. I think you're right on too.
Yeah. Because you have rates that went up, people are a little more hesitant. You have a declining economy, and then you have buyers sitting on the sideline saying, "Well, if rates are up and the economy is shit, what do we do?" And a lot of them are just sitting on their hands. Now, real estate, that's not the end of the world if they're sitting on their hands, but with what I do, it can cost an entrepreneur a lot of money if they wait when they should.
Sure.
So I've been seeing that a lot lately. So you're in all 50 states currently?
We aren't in all 50 states yet. We are primarily, our team is built out in the Rocky Mountain states, up into the north, the Northwest, Oregon, Washington, and we have recently moved into the Southeast and also the East Coast. And we just got started there with a salesperson in each of those locations. So we're kind of brand new to those regions.
Okay.
But we're focusing on like on the East Coast, large tracts of timber property, and same with the Southeast. And obviously there's agriculture in those areas too that we focus on. But I would say the majority of our business has been built out and is steady in the Rocky Mountain states.
Okay. With plans to expand nationwide.
That's right. And we recently started Fay Ranches International, and
Nice.
we just listed our first ranch in Costa Rica. So we've been working with some foreign real estate agents and looking at creative ways where we can help them with some co-marketing back into the United States, tapping into some of the American, Canadian money that could go down there, and you can get oftentimes even better results on an agricultural property as far as cash flow over there than you can here in the US. So we'll see where that goes, but we just launched that this month. So
nice. Okay. What are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing?
So most certainly our clientele are very different than residential buyers. So, you have to use a different set of techniques, skills, marketing in order to get in front of the right type of buyers, right? And there's, when we're talking about buying a $2 million asset up to a $30 million asset, it's just not the same as the realtors that are out, selling $300,000 to $700,000 homes. So we really have to get creative about our marketing. Is very hands-on. You have to get out, shake hands, and let people know who you are, and then build that like and trust with them so that they'll want to use you for a purchase of that size.
Yeah. I would say getting them comfortable to pick someone that's going to help them make that decision is not easy.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. And where do you see this market going in the next year or two? Do you see this expanding, going down?
So I see an expansion to this, and the reason why I would say it that way is because if you look, at real estate as a whole, you can analyze some trends, but if you look at agriculture as a whole, I think you get to combine it with the real estate trends. So agriculture is not going away. In fact, we may need to focus on new and improved ways where we can grow more of our own food in the United States, and where we can supply our own population instead of sourcing this stuff out of country.
Yeah.
And so I see agriculture, at some point, the United States has to lean heavily on the landowners that do have the fertile land. So I feel that, coupled with the historical aspect of, real estate tends to ride through recessions better than other types of assets or investments. I think the two combined together make a really strong, I've been calling it a portfolio balancer. Like, you may not see huge percentage of gains on your ag or your land investment, but you're going to see a really balanced look to it, which a lot of people are going to need in the coming years, I think.
Yeah.
That's where I think we're going to hold steady in the next couple of years.
Okay. Got it. If you don't mind sharing, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you've made as an entrepreneur?
You know what? Wow, there's a lot of them, man. So
Me too.
Yeah. I tend to come from a background where we pull ourselves up our own bootstraps. The Western culture, the old Western movie or Louis L'Amour novel type concept. And I wish I would have learned earlier to use more people on my team.
Yep.
And then that you don't have to be great at everything. There was a great book called Strengths Finder 2.0, and the book really resonated with me when I started building a team, because take what you're great at and really pursue those things, and then hire and have people help you that are good at other things. And I wish I'd have started that sooner. I now have it going on, but I look to build it out even more in the future. So that's probably number one for me, for sure.
Okay, that's great.
I was a lone wolf for a long time. So
Strength Finder 2.0?
Yeah, it's a great book.
Awesome. Give us like the top 5 things someone should be doing if they're looking to buy a ranch.
The top 5 things for me would be, and obviously I'm a broker, an agent, but you need someone in your corner that understands it. Take, for instance, the TV show Yellowstone has sparked a lot of national interests about ranches in the Rocky Mountains,
Yeah.
But people, what they see on a television show like that, or any other sort of TV, Western related TV, is not accurate to the way things really are. So a good ranch broker can very much help you iron out a lot of the novelty of owning a ranch. There's also a lot of work and a lot of money involved in owning a ranch. So before you just go off half-cocked, get with somebody that knows what's going on. That's probably the first thing that I would say. But then second of all, I would think that water, you absolutely, in my opinion, want to buy a property that has great water, whether that be irrigated, meadows from the mountain streams, or whether there's live water running through the property. I think that secures the value of the property much more than a dry land property. So that's a second item. I would think number 3, we have a lot of cash buyers in this industry.
Really?
that are pulling money, out of their investments and sticking it into land. But I would think that there are some amazing programs with the USDA, with different farm lending agencies to help improve ranch properties. So, like everybody talks about the fix and flips in towns,
Hmm.
and I tend to think, in fact, we published an article on the Land Investor Guide not long ago about improving ranch properties, and I tend to think that there's an awesome opportunity there to buy like antiquated, dilapidated, rundown old ranch properties
Hmm.
and infuse some funds back into them and sell them to somebody, that's that cash buyer. So I think that's another good opportunity is look for the family ranch and nobody wants it anymore and it's dilapidated and you could roll in there and fix it up and conserve it for many, many, many more generations for somebody else. That's another thing, that I'd really look for is, everybody wants the log lodge and the log home and this and that, but you're going to expect to pay, you know, 10, 12, 15 million dollars anymore for a lot of that. But if you're willing to put some of the sweat equity into it and the development equity, then you might have a chance to really buy into a really good investment. So there's three things. The fourth thing I would say is during the title insurance
Yeah.
review process, really take your time, work with your agent, hire an attorney, get with them, and really understand what you're buying. Because on a property of 1,000, 2,000, 4,000 acres, there can be a lot more nuances than buying a quarter acre lot in the city. And there could be hidden easements and mineral right issues and water right issues. So I would say another big thing is to slow down during the
Hmm.
title insurance review and really make sure you analyze it a lot more than you probably do your traditional lot in town. Um, and then number five, I'm going to say make sure that the I'm going right back to the brokerage, but make sure the sales broker that you choose also has a background in agriculture. There are a lot of agents out there selling and doing ranch real estate because they're bigger ticket items or more commissions, but they don't have a background in that ranch agricultural real estate area.
Hmm.
And I think that's a big benefit because of the local connections they can get you involved with, as well as just an extensive knowledge of how agriculture and ranches work, can
Uh-huh.
really point you in the right direction versus a lot of people buying these now are just going in blind, and they're hoping to figure it out as you go. You could save yourself 3 years worth of mistakes by just getting a little bit of steering from
Yeah.
a agricultural minded person. So that's kind of the five things right off the top of my head, man.
I love that. That's very helpful. So you mentioned some of those programs, and that was actually one of the questions I was going to ask you about. What different options are there for financing a ranch? Because like for real estate, you just know you're going to get either a 15-year or a 30-year, right? You're going, traditional like Fannie or Freddie, or hard money or something.
Sure.
Tell us about financing a ranch and some of the different programs and some of the different opportunities available to people.
Yeah, so there's some different banks out there that finance these ranches. AgLend and Farm Credit Services of America. And, traditionally, they oftentimes have a larger interest rate than your traditional uh, residential real estate loan. So you're going to expect to pay a little bit more um, on the interest rate costs. But for instance, like Farm Credit Services of America, you're buying into their, private equity of that bank, and then they pay back a dividend every year. So I actually have my own hay farm out here in Wyoming that I have bought and added on to as years have gone by. And I was with them for a long time, and they'll send me a dividend check every year at just after Christmas, after their, I think in March it is. But I often found the extra 1% of interest that I was paying, I ended up getting back from the company, because the company's such a solid financial institution. So every year it came back around to me through their dividend. So there's just a kind of an illustration. There's also, a lot of young people that are interested in it. I always steer them towards the USDA, FSA, which are federal loans, and partnered with. And there's some young Farmer and Rancher of America loans that are smaller interest rates because they need young people to get involved in this industry. And so they're offering longer terms with smaller interest rates. And I've seen a lot of young 20-year-olds hit home runs out here in Wyoming just because they were willing to work hard.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy life by any means. They work long hours, they work hard hours, but I've seen them fix these places up, and 10 years later they flip them and triple their money on them after also making a living for 10 years, and they're now financially set to keep moving forward. So I think the young farmers out there, young kids interested in it, don't pass up those USDA and FSA opportunities. So
Now, if somebody wanted to learn more about that and getting involved at a young age, where would you send them? Besides following, obviously,
you mean like the website for the USDA?
or anywhere if someone's interested, where could they
Yeah,
go?
yeah. I mean, obviously they could contact us at Fay Ranches, fayranches.com. We got brokers all over the United States in different locations, depending on where they're located. They could contact me at jw@fayranches.com, and they can hit me up on my cell phone, 307-899-5403. And we can most certainly help them, find that local broker that can help them in whatever area of the United States they're trying to do this in.
Okay.
And also we can help, give them some options for that financing opportunities in the agricultural sector.
Nice. Yeah, the reason why I think it's getting popular, this was never on my radar, never in a million years, right? And now it's on my vision board to get.
Yeah.
To get, I don't know. I don't need something massive, but just something in Florida, maybe 5-10 acres.
Yeah. Yeah, my hay farm out here is not massive, but I can completely be self-sufficient if I need to be, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, we got neighbors that can help take care of us, so we don't have to have all the big heavy duty equipment and stuff. But at any point in time, we can trade with our neighbors and do everything we need to do to be self-sufficient, from grocery stores, and have our own livestock, all that kind of stuff. So, and it's a beautiful spot, man. It's private. You get a little break from all the hustle and bustle. So
I'm sure. I'm sure. Okay, what are some of the differences? So you alluded to this when I asked for the top 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you did a good job of just going into the top 5. I want to know, what are some of the major differences between buying, let's say, a ranch, right, versus your traditional real estate that people might not be aware of?
Okay, so one of the first things is, when you do a traditional residential real estate deal, and I don't know how this is in every state, but some states, there has to be a bill of sale on personal property. So you buy your residential home, and there might be a few pieces of personal property, like for $10 consideration, AW is also getting the stove and the refrigerator and a couple of items that are not in a household like that. Maybe the washer and dryer came with it or something. When you buy a ranch, oftentimes, and I'm talking about the big ranches, but some of the smaller ranches would be this way also. Oftentimes, the irrigation equipment alone might be worth $50,000 to $250,000. They might sell all of the tractors and haying equipment for the farm with the ranch. They might sell all of the cattle with the ranch. And so I think one of the big differences is that bill of sale for personal property is a big difference. And that's where these other lenders come into place, because Wall Street banks want nothing to do with or that kind of stuff tied into a certain type of a mortgage. So these farm banks really understand how to divide the land value and the building value from the business value, the agricultural business value. So it ends up being a little bit two different notes a lot of times. But that's one major difference. I would think, irrigation water rights, how do I water a farm field, is very foreign to most buyers, because, we get tapped into city water or a county rural water system or something, and we don't really understand it. Or maybe a country property on 5 acres has a well, but like the snow melts in the Rocky Mountains and they dam it up into reservoirs, and these irrigation districts take a certain amount of water from the reservoirs, and then your property has a certain amount that it's allotted. And another guy's water rights date back to 1894, and yours are 1924, and another family's are 1944. And there can very quickly and easily be fights, legal battles about water out here, because without water, you don't have fertile property. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a major difference that most people wouldn't understand between the two, is the importance of knowing what water rights you have. Because if your 1974 water rights, they're going to shut you off in a drought and send all that water to the guy with 1904 water rights, So it's really technical information that's really state by state, waterway by waterway, that needs investigated with the proper people, so that you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
With the purchase. So those are a couple quick things that are definitely different.
Yeah, but just those two things alone, you could see, if you're just using a real estate agent rather than someone that actually knows what they're doing, how costly it could be.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like those are big deals, not little.
No, they're make or break deals on properties like that.
Exactly. What do you think some of the best practices are for anyone that's trying to sell their ranch?
So, I feel like selling your ranch, this goes back to, for me, the number one thing I tell people is, there's that old book by Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he told his son in that illustration to keep his ranch, or to keep his yard green and clean. That was their contract with each other, is keep it green, keep it clean. And I think the number one thing that makes a ranch more valuable than the next guy's ranch is when it's green and when it's clean. And a lot of times people don't keep their properties clean. They let the junk pile up, and the old hay that's rotten and moldy just sits there. And and I get it. You get wore out. You're out of gas at the end of the week, and you don't feel like working any harder, and it's easier to sit on the back porch and crack a cold one. But the reality is, to maintain those high property values, you've got to keep that place green and clean. So that's number one thing I tell people. Number two, marketing is of utmost importance, right? Because if you just pick the hometown realtor in your area, they're going to add this ranch property to the MLS and their local MLS, and they're going to have a few affiliate partners that they go with. But how do you get a $6 million ranch, that the family's getting rid of? How do you get that in front of people that can afford it?
Yep.
And so it takes really specific marketing, like a company like ours, Fay Ranch, has built out, and with 80,000 email addresses we send out that are approved and verified type buyers that we can count on to actually look at these properties, and then not only look at them, but even afford them. So it's a different thing than just going at it. You know, the biggest slice of the real estate pie is probably, you know, $250,000 to $500,000 buyers. And then the further away from zero you get, the smaller the slice of the pie. Well, you know, we got some ranches at Fay here for $30+ million. That's a pretty small slice of the pie that can afford that. So, so we're really talking about if you're looking to sell, how is the marketing targeted to the right type of buyer? And we've done a lot of things. We built out the Land Investor Guide Instagram brand, and it's been a huge success for us. We're gaining a lot of new followers, and we're cranking out quality information for all our people on there every week. And that's been a modern way that we brought into the mix to do it. But we didn't do it just by saying, hey, you know, Fay Ranch is another $30 million ranch. We did it by just providing valuable content. You know, every week we got one of our agents or a professional that we work with cranking out quality content. So the people reading it are people that want to understand and digest that kind of content. And so it brings traffic to us. That's the type of leads we need. And so that's what I would say to the sellers, man. Green and clean, and get marketing that gets your property in front of the right eyeballs.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, JW, this is awesome, man. You crushed it. Answers clear, decisive. I love it. Where can people go if they want to work with you, or they just have some questions?
Sure. So fayranches.com is our website. They can email me at jw@fayranches.com, and they can most certainly get a hold of me by text or phone call, 307-899-5403.
Awesome.
I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook at JW Robinson. So